Thank you, everyone. Please get comfortable. There's some seats at the front here as well, some spare seats. There's lots of standing. It's good to see that so many people are in this room because this is the serious talking room where we're talking about solving real-world problems. And that last presentation was great, actually, because there's going to be quite a lot of repetition. But repetition isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing. It means that's what we've got to be doing, all right? So, all right, provocative title, How to Dismantle an AI Bomb. And can the collective power of advertising unfuck the world? All right, let's go. Already been introduced. I've got two hats on that I'm standing on this stage presenting. One is I'm co-founder founder of the Barber Shop. So that's looking at it from an advertising and agency perspective. But also I'm co-chair of the Conscious Advertising Network, which is the collective that's trying to stop advertising from funding bad shit on the web. So first up, right, this is the bit where I glorify you a little bit. All right, you work in media, you're a media rock star, and you're killing it. All right, give yourselves a big kind of pat on the back. Well done. All right, so brilliant, brilliant. So that's enough of that, all right? So what is it? What is it? Well, people, planet, and all the things that make us good humans. That's what you're killing. And why is that? Well, we've just talked about some numbers. All right, this is the global number, 567 billion. It always goes up, doesn't it? So it's even out of date already. This is 2022. Global number for me, marketer, the amount of digital pounds spent or dollars spent. Absolutely huge, and advertising fuels the internet. And why? Well, you know, it's responsible for giving us all the things that we love. Everything, pretty much everything, apart from the things you subscribe to, are funded by advertising. So loads and loads of good content. Everything, even Google's a machine that's funded by advertising. The whole model is built on advertising and grabbing your attention, which is the currency. But with that comes the bad, all right? So it's also responsible for funding lots of bad and harmful shit content as well. So things that are influencing political outcomes, but also just the things that are distracting and getting teenagers in the wrong places and these wormholes that they don't need to be in as well. So the internet is this largely wonderful free resource, and we've got to remember that it is that because of advertising. So feel proud that we've provided something to the world, but we've also provided a lot of shit to the world as well. And the problem is that it's funding bad shit. And some of that bad shit it has that kind of atomic effect. It has the power of actually doing some serious damage. And if you can read that, you know, this is stuff that, you know, people don't like to talk about in these kind of rooms. But you know, we know that social media has done a lot of good and pull people together, but it's also drawn people and pulled people apart. And that's a quote from Amnesty International about the Myanmar massacre as well, which is something that's not documented quite a lot, but is serious effects of advertising and the consequences of funding bad shit. And AI is set to accelerate this, right? As exciting as it is, we're due for more fake news, more disinformation, more junk, more emissions, just more shit that's going to be flooding the internet and more shit that we're going to have to deal with. If anyone wants any more Nigerian prince emails, yeah, that's it. Just go into you know, a ChatGPT and do it. No, it's okay. I can say that joke because I'm kind of Ghanaian as well, so I can dig at the Nigerians. But yeah, you know, we're due for some really bad times because these tools are so powerful, but in the hands of the wrong people, it's very easy to create lots of bad things. And it isn't surprised that hate is on the rise. So you know, we always say, what are the consequences of all this stuff? And you can see there, just in period of March 2022, just how awful all the bad increases are, you know, hate crimes and all the rest of it are happening across England and Wales in itself. So we can't sit back passively as advertisers. So we're all invested, all right? We're all spending money and we're all invested. And advertising, after all, you know, we're in this attention economy. And disinformation, the problem is disinformation can be extremely profitable. It encourages people to spend time in the wrong places, click on things. And they've estimated that $250 million is paid annually to 20,000 disinformation sites. So it's quite a profitable business to be in the business of disinformation. And this was the figure that came out in the question. 21% of websites are made for advertising. They exist purely just to get some of that big $567 billion prize. So this chart that we should all be familiar with, this is the famous ISBAR and PwC chart, which showed the programmatic supply chain and just how money's been diluted down with all the different suppliers in the middle, and how less than, close to like 50% or so originally they were saying was going to the publisher eventually. But we've got to edit this chart, and we've got to say, hang on a minute, we've got to put in a little bit for made for advertising as well. We've got to take a chunk out of that because what we're trying to do is get money to the real publishers, the good publishers, the ones that are producing great content, and actually take off the made for advertising, also take off the disinformation sites and all the rest of it. You'll see that number go even further down. And if you're an advertiser and you're spending this pound, you know, you're influencing some of the wrong things. without even realizing. So, it's said even more eloquently by Tim Wang, who's got this great book called The Subprime Attention Crisis. And here he talks about how digital advertising is at risk of collapsing, and its instability is analogous to the 2008 housing bubble. And that's the whole point of this kind of subprime analogy. So he talks about it in even more significant consequences. He thinks the whole thing's going to explode on itself. And, this might sound shocking and alarming. And, we read this and we think, right, is he over-exaggerating? And then this happens. Just last week, a lot of people were probably here, but affected or know people that worked at MediaMath. And you've got to wonder, is this the signs of things just creaking in certain places because the model has been overtaken by too much corruptness and bad players? And ultimately, the effectiveness of what we're doing isn't necessarily increasing in the right places, and the outcomes aren't improving. And there's also another thing to present here as well, to give a little bit of a beacon of hope as well. There are people that are thinking about this and thinking hard and fast about it. And so Tristan Harris and Asa Raskin from the Center of Humane Technology talk about 3 rules of humane technology. And they talk about the rule 1 is when we invent a new technology, we uncover a new class of responsibility. So they talk about how before cameras were invented, we didn't need the right to be, forgotten, our identity. But as soon as cameras were massively adopted, and suddenly that became a real thing, and computers being able to store all these images and all this information about us, suddenly that identity question becomes into play about where are we at any one period of time, and suddenly it matters more. Also, the fact that new roles need to be created just to deal with this new world and this new society we're living in. And the biggest problem with the AI situation is that we just need this element of truth within it as well, because every powerful industry, law, housing, and whatever else, property, all has its regulators, all it has its people, just to keep the system fair, just to keep the thing truthful. So when you buy a house, you know that you're buying something has got a certain amount of sustained value. And that's not happening at the moment in the world of AI, which is the problem. And the second thing is that the second rule is that when this new technology confers power, it will start a race. And that race can be really quite dangerous if it's been competed with the wrong players. And then the final thing is that if we don't coordinate, the race will end in tragedy. And I think that there's one thing that a lot of the AI developers that work at companies don't agree on. They don't think that we can really coordinate. And sadly, I think that's the only solution, is that people do get together and start to get around the table and talk about how they can steer the thing in the right direction. So the question is, what can advertisers do? What can we do to dismantle this impending bomb? So we set ourselves a brief. Our agencies and consultancies don't really do this. We usually are really good at solving other people's briefs, but never really do it for ourselves. So we set ourselves our own brief and said, right, what can we do? So the brief goes like, while we're all very excited by the impact of AI, and we really are, we've thrown ourselves into it. We're excited by the impact it's going to have on our industry, but we need to get more excited about the impact and its potential for positive change. So that was the brief. And we talk about what good looks like when we work at the barbershop. So we talk about 3 different things: data, distribution, disruptive ideas, and we put things in those kind of buckets. And the data piece is understanding the meaningful data, really understanding the fact that what do we need to move, what are the metrics we need to really move to make a difference. Distribution is all about reaching people and where media goes. And disruptive ideas is the fun stuff, the things that are different, the things that you get thrown out the room for presenting sometimes, but the things that can make a significant difference. So we'll come on to those in a second. So when we looked at the data piece, firstly, it was mentioned earlier on, Laura mentioned it actually, meaningful goals that we can measure. It's really important to have meaningful goals that we can measure. Whatever it is you're trying to change, you don't know the progress you're making unless you have these meaningful goals. And the thing is, you can't mark your own homework either. You can't just set yourself your own targets that are easy to achieve. So what do? We hired Alex, all right? So Alex is our kind of secret, internal consultant now. So Alex runs a company called Canvas. She's a philanthropy and CSR consultant. And that's a great statement about the kind of work that she does there on her website, supporting inspirational people and companies and investigating meaningful and powerful change in the world. So we knew that she was going to come in and she wasn't going to make it easy for us or easy for us to get around anything and cut any corners. And with her as well, we set this as a bit of our goal in our guide. So we talked about B Corp. We want to be B Corp. As a company, we're pretty remote, so we haven't got this kind of massive carbon footprint. But still, we aspire to be B Corp because that's the kind of company we want to keep. And then we're already connected to the Conscious Advertisers Network, but we hadn't put ourselves through the whole thing as well. We use a lot of different suppliers, and while I sit on the co-chair, we haven't actually properly gone through the process ourselves. So I said, right, we want to go through it properly, get all our policies in place, and then, as was mentioned earlier on, the real goals are the UN sustainability goals. That's the real aim. That's the real thing that everyone should be focused on. So the CAN, if you don't know it, Conscious Advertiser Network, it's got 7 key manifesto pillars. And it goes beyond just, climate is actually a relatively new one because of all the disinformation and misinformation that was getting thrown out there. We added that just over a year ago. But anti-ad fraud, diversity, informed consent, hate speech, child well-being, mis and disinformation, and sustainability. So the first thing was just to make sure that we could comply and get on board this and go through the trackers and make sure that we're all in the right places there. And the second thing is thinking bigger about the goals. So the UN sustainability goals, this is looking at things like, for example, the problem of debts, global debt, and bigger kind of issues that can make significant differences, food and farming and things like that, and distribution and excess of supply and things like that. So it's really important to think just beyond the immediate things that advertising might do, as a business anyway. Outcome of that, this kind of data piece, is firstly we made a lot of pledges. We were involved in a lot of things and we pledge and we know these things, but pledges are pledges, right? You've got to move a bit more into policy. So one of the big things that Alex has done all this policy work, get us all compliant in so many different things. Loads and loads of serious documents, just making sure that we're doing the right thing. And even though we don't employ very many people, we're doing the things that big companies should be doing. And then the promises. You've got to make some promises and hold yourself to account and keep yourself there. So the things that she unearthed, and I picked out that one particularly, the disability confident committed symbol, because that allowed us to go into spaces that we weren't really expecting to go into, we hadn't really thought about, but she's forcing these things in the agenda to think about what is our disability program, what can we do there as well. And the good news is that even if you haven't got a heart of gold and you don't want to do this for the right reasons, if you want to do it for purely commercial reasons, well, ESG actually outperforms non-ESG businesses. And this is a chart from Legacy, which I'll come on to in a second. But you can see there just the tracking of it, because it's the right thing to do. It's doing business in the right way. But also consumers are acting appropriately. They're looking for the brands that are acting in the right way. And it takes away the risk. The city's now investing in companies that are prioritising ESG, and that's why it's been taken really seriously. So that moves us on to the distribution part. So media that actually works. All right? The emphasis is on actually works, because we all think, and we've all kind of grown up in this digital world where impressions and things like that are these kind of false metrics, viewability and all this kind of nonsense are considered to be metrics. Right? They aren't metrics. This article from Seb Joseph was great in Digiday. And here, this little passage, he captures it. Right? He says, and here lies the problem. It's all just talk. To act on it will require marketers to do the unthinkable. They would need to consider adopting a more meaningful KPIs that effectively measure campaign success that align to tangible business metrics. Such a shift would undermine the very foundation that allows MFAs to persist. But that would also mean admitting that the metrics marketers currently use are superficial. What about that for a bomb to drop down? Okay, that's basically saying that we're just looking at nonsense numbers, and that's what we are doing. We're looking at nonsense numbers, and we've got to move on and start talking about the real numbers. So what is that? So first of all, we talked about reviewing your supply list. So the last presentation talked about reviewing your supply list. Yeah, there's a whole load of people to review. So we've come up with this kind of programmatic and supply, and it's important to say it's more than just programmatic. As was said before, there are some big established players that are also not necessarily operating in the right way. They might be spreading misinformation. I can talk about Fox News and GB News, right? No one's from there, right? We can talk about these people as an example. And you've got to score them lower. You've got to put the scores down, and you've got to score them down. And if there is a strong reason to use them, because your client insists, then you can consider that. But there's lots of reasons not to. Secondly, we've revised this list and started to focus on suppliers that we know are doing the right thing. You can't, always ask the right questions, so you need to know people who are also on the same journey as you. And AdLook is one of the suppliers, and I can see Rich there actually, you can give us a little wave, that we started working with recently. And the good news is they're using things like Adelaide and Scope 3, built into their buys, so we can take away the concern from us about doing the right thing as well. And then finally, rebalancing. So I put the legacy logo there because legacy look at ESG data across all media owners as well. So we can look at plans, look at historic plans, and start to go, actually, what happens if we shift this media owner with that media owner? How does that look at for the overall ESG score? And they've also integrated into planning tools like Telmar and things like that, so you can actually see it and use it more dynamically as well. But the big thing is about actions and outcomes. So changing the metrics that you're measuring and the metrics you're reporting. So moving away from just impression-based metrics and looking much more harder metrics, whether that's attention-based or cost per completed views and actual actions and actual things that you can improve on. How long have I got? I've got enough time. You got it? Yeah, good. All right. So the final thing, this is the exciting part, this is the crazy and exciting part, is using AI to defeat AI, all right? So you've got to use that force and turn it around and push it in a different direction. This is our disruptive ideas bit. The first thing is, attention AI is actually a disruptive idea because everyone talks about attention, measures it, but actually using AI to be smart to identifying the human attention, all right? Because it's easy to get fooled by, chatbot attention and or crawler attention and things like that, things that are not really real. So putting in these extra layers and factors and context to actually find the better outcome and optimize your plan in a better way is really important. It's finding attention metrics that we're not trying to overload people with advertising to steal their attention. We're trying to find the right amount of attention for them to move and act in a certain way, and not too much so it ruins the humanity of what we're doing. And here as well, this video is not going to it's quite long and I'm not going to play it all, but we've also invested in a new ad business called Intuit, and Lee, I'm not sure if Lee's here, Lee Henshaw, but it's a really simple principle. It's trying to match up people with the things that they're into, and advertisers with things that people are into, and people claim that they're into. So you can use the browser to talk about, there's a test going on with the music business right now. It's expanding to different genres, and you just tell it what you like, and guess what? It gives you what you like. And then, the beta test has shown that you get better response rates, you can charge a bigger CPM, you can give more money back to the publishers, and everyone's happy, all right? It isn't buying cheap shit, it's buying quality shit, and that's a really good thing. And I wanted to play the rest of the video, but you can see how it works, but I won't do it. I'll move on because we haven't got that much time. All right. Okay, this is the final thing, all right? And this is, it's always an opportunity to mention a bit of a new thing at a conference like this. One of the really big things that we've realized is that with this kind of space race with AI, there's going to be this massive disparity between the haves and the have-nots. The people that throw themselves into it are going to gain a significant advantage for a certain period of time. And what that's going to do is going to lead to inequality of the data and the AI haves and the AI have-nots. And really, when we talk about things like diversity and equality in that sense, and opportunity, we're going to face another problem where the people in this room, the majority being, the stereotypical media crowd, right, are going to be rising above. And there's going to be people outside of this room who are going to be left behind. And we need those people that are outside this room to be getting and investing themselves in AI and solving the problems that they are currently oppressed by. So we're trying to do that by encouraging diverse groups, underrepresented groups, to actually throw themselves into AI, come up with ideas, develop things, with guided and mentorship as well. So we're launching a fund. That's what this basically says. And this is one of the things that Alex made us do. So we're launching a fund, which is going to be a grant, and we'll get more people to invest in it, and it will launch at some point in 2024, but we'll start it this year. But it's going to encourage underrepresented groups to get into the development of AI solutions that have a positive impact on the world. So if you want to know more about it, just let me know. That's it, in summary. Okay, so take responsibility for the power of your advertising pounds and measure what matters. Work with like-minded suppliers that you can trust and invest in good AI to defeat the bad AI. Sign up to Cannes, get external consultants to sort yourselves out, and commit and do something and make change happen. Thank you.
Brilliant.